difficulties. I talk a lot about STEM, and I always say that I struggle with the T in STEM, and the technology piece is one that we've all dealt with a lot during COVID and sometimes fails us. So thanks for sticking with us. I'm Camille Schrier. I'm Miss America 2020. I'm really excited to be here with you today and share a little bit about who I am and my story. So make sure if you have questions while I'm talking, write them down, put them in the question and answer section, and we will have an opportunity for me to answer all of those questions that you've asked at the end. But make sure if you have a question, you ask it. You can ask me any question that you want. Just don't ask me who I'm voting for in the next election. That's the only question you don't want to ask me. But literally, you can ask me anything. I'm happy to answer it and elaborate on anything that you would like me to. So with that said, I am going to get into a little story that I want to tell you all. So I never ever doubted that I wanted to be a scientist. In my earliest of memories, my interests always revolved around science in one way or another, even though I was too young to understand that science was behind them. As a child, the kitchen was my first laboratory, where I loved experimenting with ingredients, watching physical changes, and creating new recipes. My parents always appeased my interests and were kind enough to sample my products without any overt signs of disgust or nausea. Eventually, I got the knack of cooking and baking, and I found myself before the age of 10 exploring meringues and yeasted doughs. I was fascinated by how egg whites changed form, how yeast came alive, and how fat could be turned into an emulsion. But what I didn't know was that buried within all of those activities that I loved was biology, chemistry, physics, and I was stoking my love of science. What I always loved about science is that it touches everything that we do every single day. It's part of what we enjoy, like art, sports, baseball, basketball, music, and dancing. It's part of everything that we use, like toothpaste, soap, shampoo, cosmetics, phones, and computers. It's part of everything that we need, like medicine, food, clothing, houses, and cars. Physics is what allows us to sing. Chemistry is part of baking bread. And biology helps grow the plants that produce the cotton in the clothes that we are wearing. But I have to admit, I was not one of those kids that had a set dream of what I wanted to be when I grew up. But what I did know was that at an early age, I loved every living thing. Be it a big mouth bass that I caught in the pond in my front yard, a plant that grew in my garden, a frog that croaked, or much to my parents' dismay, a snake that I picked up in my yard and it turned and bit me. I named her Princess and she bit me and I wasn't very happy. I remember thinking that I wanted to be a naturologist, which eventually turned into an interest in marine biology. My toddler love of vegetable gardening provided fodder for my continued kitchen experimentation. And by the age of 12, I had learned home canning and jam making and had a shoebox full of blue ribbons from my local Grange fair, which then led me to thoughts of a career in food science. I spent my weekends and summers in programs sponsored by Johns Hopkins and Carnegie Mellon universities, building and launching rockets, constructing simple machines, making gravimeters, and even putting on white swim caps where I was mapping out brain structure on each other's heads. In 8th grade, I read a book called The Hot Zone and became captivated by the Ebola virus, which then spawned ideas of a future in infectious disease, epidemiology, or immunology. That would have been pretty helpful this year. By my high school graduation, I had shadowed an ABC meteorologist, a University of Pennsylvania nanotechnology cancer research professor, several engineers in construction, and a food processing flavor chemist. Through all of my years of youthful exploration, one common theme evolved, and that was my desire to pursue a career in science, technology, engineering, and math. So I then began my undergraduate education in the Midwest as a chemical engineering student. And despite my successful completion of my first year of college, I was an unhappy college student. I first changed my university, which led me to my Hokie home at Virginia Tech, go Hokies. And then I subsequently changed my major to biological systems engineering. But through this academic transition, I came to realize that that E in STEM just wasn't my passion. So I continued to explore, and I discovered a new program in the College of Science called Systems Biology. And that degree is basically described as computational biology and mathematical modeling, also known as bioinformatics, which would be used to solve biological problems using math and computer science. I was super excited and I enrolled. I'd actually learned in chemical engineering that I actually liked organic chemistry, which is kind of rare. So I added a second degree in biochemistry and a minor in chemistry to supplement the math and computer science knowledge that I was gaining. I had finally found my niche. And for me, I found my home in the S, T, and the M of STEM. It was then my experience as an intern in business development in an international pharmaceutical company under the leadership of a pharmacist for 2 summers that ultimately led me to the Virginia Commonwealth University School of Pharmacy, where I just completed my first year of my Doctor of Pharmacy back in May of 2019. So I had competed on stage for a few times during my teen years, but I had hung up my heels, so to speak, and retired after accomplishing my goals of gaining public speaking, presentation, and interviewing skills to focus on my undergraduate education. But admittedly, once you've competed for a crown, the idea of Miss America kind of penetrates your subconscious mind. But for me, the idea of competing in some kind of a swimsuit on stage only and ever meant diving into a pool on my USA swim team to compete in backstroke or butterfly. But in 2018, the Miss America organization actually eliminated their swimsuit competition. And on a whim, last year, while juggling 10 pharmacy courses, I know I'm crazy, I saw an advertisement for the last competition leading up to Miss Virginia. And I thought, what the heck? At least I can say that I tried this once. And I was a novice in the Miss America organization, so I was pretty sure that I was going to lose. Well, we know how this story turns out, and in 8 months, I went from Miss Dominion to Miss Virginia, and then on December 19th of 2019, I was crowned Miss America. Crazy. Last summer, after I won Miss Virginia, a rather aggressive reporter came up to me and asked me, "Camille, you are a graduate student in science. Why do you feel the need to compete in a beauty contest? Is graduate school not enough for you?" And at first, I felt a little attacked, but I realized that that was the moment that was exactly why I wanted to compete. Because Miss America had been a beauty contest. But as a woman in science, I saw so much value in this opportunity now, especially in the scholarships. But it's important to know a brief history of Miss America in order to understand its relevance today. So picture this. It's September of 1921, 99 years ago. You're about to watch the Fall Frolic, an event designed to bring business to the boardwalk in Atlantic City, New Jersey. 9 newspapers decided to hold a photo popularity contest from among their readerships to increase their sales. The female finalists are to be judged on their personality and social graces during citywide summer events, and they're known as the Inner City Beauties. 16-year-old Margaret Gorman of Washington, D.C. won the event, and the next day, competing for the elusive title of the Golden Mermaid, these same women are entered into the Bathers Review, a bathing suit competition, and it was scandalous. One contestant made the shocking decision to wear tights with her bathing suit instead of bloomers, and it caused a public commotion. Remember, it's 1921. Women had just only gained the right to vote. 100,000 people gathered on September 8th to watch the contestants, and riding on the prior day's popularity, Margaret Gorman was crowned the Golden Mermaid. In 1922, the Golden Mermaid was given a new title, Miss America. And that's how this began. But these women pushed cultural and social boundaries. They were confident. They were progressive. They were positive disruptors. Now, the competition evolved as women did, and by 1938, a talent competition was added. In 1944, compensation switched from furs and movie contracts to college scholarships. 1948 saw the beginning of winners crowned in evening gowns rather than bathing suits. And in 1984, Vanessa Williams became the first Black Miss America. In 1985, body measurements were eliminated from the program book. And in the 90s, every winner was required to have a platform which she promoted. Now called our Social Impact Initiative, the societal work that we advance has now been incorporated into our interviews and in the competition through TED Talk type presentations. My Social Impact Initiative is Mind Your Meds, Drug Safety and Abuse Prevention from Pediatrics to Geriatrics, and is related to my career as a future doctor of pharmacy. Breaking Barriers for Women with Disabilities, Heather Whitestone, deaf since her birth, won the title of Miss America in 1994. And Virginia's own Nicole Johnson, a type 1 diabetic, was the first Miss America to publicize her insulin pump when she won in 1999. These women continued to push cultural and social boundaries. They too were progressive. They too were confident. And they too were positive disruptors. Now, the most recent changes in 2018 that eliminated the swimsuit competition as well as all physical judging criteria really resonated with me personally. As I mentioned earlier, I was a competitive swimmer. I have also been a competitive equestrian, track athlete, and a field hockey player. I have ribbons, letters, and trophies from these endeavors, as well as academic and onstage speech competitions. But what I don't possess is a traditional singing, dancing, or instrumental talent. And that was another barrier in me competing for Miss America, the talent competition. So I chose to use that authentic passion for science that I shared with you before to broaden the definition of talent at Miss America. And armed with beakers, goggles, gloves, chemicals, and my lab coat, I stepped on stage to perform the catalytic decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. Do you guys maybe want to see that? I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you guys exactly how I did this. Let me open this up. Give me one moment. And remember, if you guys have any questions for me, just let me know. I'm going to open this. Here we go. Okay, guys, you ready for this? This is exactly what I did on stage. This is at Miss America. If you've ever seen the elephant's toothpaste demonstration, that is what this is. And you're going to hear me explain the actual reaction that's happening. But spoiler alert, I only have 90 seconds to do it. So I go pretty fast, but if you listen close, you'll be able to understand how the reaction works. Are you ready?
The catalytic decomposition of hydrogen peroxide is the chemistry demonstration by Camille Schrier, Miss Virginia.
Science is all around us. I've loved science since I was a little girl, and now I have the opportunity to pursue the career in science that I had always dreamed of. Science is a talent, and it's my mission to show kids that science is fun, relevant, understand. Now, you've probably seen a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, maybe when you had a cut and used it to clean out the wound. Hydrogen peroxide is a chemical that's breaking down slowly all the time. But have you ever wondered why it's packaged in a brown bottle? It's because the light from the sun speeds up its breakdown, so it's packaged in a dark bottle to protect it from light. But light and time aren't the only things that break down hydrogen peroxide. Catalysts are chemicals that are used to speed up reactions. And what we're about to watch is the catalytic decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. But be careful, don't try this one at home. Now, in my flasks are concentrated hydrogen peroxide, food coloring, and dish soap. I'm about to pour in potassium iodide, my catalyst, which will start the breakdown. Now, this reaction is very simple. It only produces three things: water, oxygen, gas, and heat. The heat is formed from the breaking of the bonds within the hydrogen peroxide molecule, and the oxygen gas is trapped in the dish soap, which forms the foam, so we can see how far the reaction has progressed. Now, the next time that you see a bottle of hydrogen peroxide, I hope you impress your friends with what you learned. And keep an eye out, because science really is all around us.
Thank you, Miss Virginia.
Okay, so that, my friends, is exactly what I did at Miss America. But like that woman 100 years ago that wore tights instead of bloomers with her bathing suit, there I stood backstage, confidently knowing that I was taking a huge risk. This was my opportunity to empower young people, especially young girls, by allowing my own interests and passions to flow freely and creatively in the world of STEM. No longer competing in a swimsuit and breaking stereotypes with science. Now I was the positive disruptor. Of greatest impact for me beyond the obvious have been the pictures that I receive of young girls dressed up like me. Not wearing gowns, but wearing lab coats and crowns. They asked me to autograph their lab coats, their science Barbies lab coats, their safety goggles, and we talk about science. I observe them formulating images of their own future possibilities. On February 11th, I was privileged to be the first Miss America to ever speak at the United Nations General Assembly on International Day of Women and Girls in Science, invited by Her Royal Highness, Dr. Nasreen El Hashimite, an MD, PhD, and a scientist, a true princess doctor. So therein lies the relevance of Miss America in 2020, that Miss America can be a scientist, and then a scientist can be Miss America. The crown is a symbol of female leadership, a female force focused on working to empower young people and women, and in this case, in the world of STEM. So the achievement of my graduate degree when I finally graduate in 2024 now will surely be enhanced by my experiential learning during my time this year as Miss America, but also significantly lessened financially through the $77,675 in scholarship assistance that I won through this organization in just 9 months. So to that reporter I told you about in the beginning, who challenged me about why I wanted to compete for Miss America, I remain true to my original answer. Because it's not a beauty contest anymore. And I am not a beauty queen. I'm a future pharmacist with degrees in biochemistry and systems biology. I'm a STEM advocate. I'm a Narcan trainer and an advocate for pharmacy legislation, drug safety, abuse prevention, and combating the opioid epidemic. Every single day, I'm reshaping and redefining the multidimensional roles of Miss America in 2020. In the words of Robert Frost, 2 words diverged in a wood, and I took the path less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So that is a little bit about me as Miss America. I do see that we have a few questions coming in, and I'm glad that I can get an opportunity to answer them for you. I'm going to pull those up, and again, if anybody has any other questions, we definitely have a little bit of time left. You can ask me literally anything, please. If there's anything you want me to expand on, my education, my love of science, being Miss America during COVID, any of those things, please just feel free to reach out via the question and answer. So I'm going to start with our first one. Someone asked me where I am originally from. Great question. And this is a confusing question, actually. So I grew up outside of Philadelphia. You are probably familiar with Philadelphia from history class and learning about, our country beginning and the Declaration of Independence. But more specifically, I live right where George Washington crossed the Delaware River to win our independence during the Revolutionary War. And so I live right there, but I also have lived in Virginia for about 6 years. And so I have some kind of a weird accent now that kind of sounds somewhere between living in the South and living in Philadelphia. So I call Virginia and Pennsylvania home. I'm really, really from Pennsylvania, but I did compete as Miss Virginia because I was living there. So both states are mine. I call them both. So I answered this question. I don't know how to move it. Okay, cool. What made me take an interest in science? Okay, and I kind of shared this a little bit, but I'll go a little bit more in depth of this. I was like 100% drawn to everything science related when I was a kid. I literally I'm old enough that I used to mail order, like literally put a card and put my information on it and send it somewhere to order something. I would mail order caterpillars to my house as a child, and I would hatch them in my kitchen because that was what I was interested in. And I really loved bugs and being outside and mud, and I had no interest in being in a dress. I really wanted to learn about the world around me and get dirty, kind of like with biology, and that really was biology. And my parents did a really good job in reminding me that that's what I liked. My mom's a nurse, and so anytime that I got sick, she was always explaining to me kind of the science of, what was different between bacteria and viruses, and why when I had a virus could I not take antibiotics? When I went in the kitchen, why did yeast make my bread rise? There were all these different pieces of science that I was really exposed to. And then I also had the opportunity to explore as I started to get older. I watched what my parents did for work. I watched what my parents' friends did for work. And then I watched what my friends' parents did. And I got to kind of see different careers that I could potentially have as I got older. And I was always most interested in the science ones. And I think that was just really authentically true to who I was. But the thing was, and I talked a little bit about this, when you say, oh, I want to have a career in STEM, well, that's not very specific, because STEM is a huge kind of realm when you think about what kind of jobs that you could get in that. And that's a good thing, because then you can kind of say, okay, I'm thinking of a STEM career and I'm going to look at all these different ones that I could do. And the other thing that I will also mention, and I talked about this a little, is that you don't have to love or be awesome at every piece of STEM. You don't have to be great at the S, the T, the E, and the M. And even if you're not, if you can be, that would be awesome. But if you're not passionate or great at every piece of that, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have a successful career in STEM. I told you I tried engineering. I thought that I wanted to be an engineer, and frankly, that just didn't fit my skills and passions. But that doesn't mean that I can't have a really awesome STEM career, because I still need engineers to work with them. And we each collaborate because we each have our own unique talents and skills. And I think that that's what makes STEM special. So find what you like. Don't be afraid to try new things, and don't be afraid to figure out what you don't like, because that is also important to know when you kind of look at your long-term career. So that's a long answer for that. Someone says, thank you for inspiring our youth. Thank you so much for listening. Getting to work with young ones, especially if you're maybe a middle or high school student watching, being able to actually like come into your schools in normal time has been one of my biggest positives of this year. I love coming into schools. I usually get to bring that science demonstration that I showed you on the video. I get to bring that in schools in person in normal times. But of course, COVID has changed the way that I do my job. So I do a lot of video stuff right now. But I'm glad that I can connect virtually. Okay, someone says, Ms. Schrier, have you ever had an interest in musical instruments? I have had many interests in things that are music related, but we talked a lot about where your natural skills and talents are. I am not a musical person. I cannot keep any rhythm or beat. And that is why I do not do music. I love music. I really wish that when I was younger, I would have been better exposed to music and maybe would have gained those skills earlier. It's something that is much easier to pick up as a kid, I think. I don't know. That's my own personal opinion. I wish I could play an instrument so much. I used to play the piano very poorly and like took a few piano lessons, but just never was something that I was very good at. And so if you play a musical instrument, stick with it. Definitely a skill that I wish I had. But I think it's important that it was cool because I got to do something different when I went to Miss America. And I think it also helped me stand out a little bit. So wish I could play an instrument, don't have that kind of skill set. Okay, someone says they are interested in biology. Do you have any tips? Oh, I love biology. I have lots of tips. Again, biology is so broad. There's so much that you can do with it. So I would say go into your education with a broad perspective of biology, but find your niche. And that's kind of like a specific focus that you are interested in. I really liked marine biology growing up, and that was something that I thought that maybe I would want to pursue. And that's a great way to kind of focus what you're interested in biology. You know, whether or not it's, you know, plants, you're interested in learning about plants, you're interested in learning about animals. I'm interested in learning about like the body and medicine and how the body reacts to different things. So that's why I liked biochemistry. So I think that biology is something that you have to kind of focus in at some point because it is so broad. But I think that, again, that's kind of one of the benefits of biology. So if you're maybe getting ready to go to college and you're thinking about maybe majoring in biology, there are a lot of opportunities that you could have with a biology degree. So you could maybe end up going to medical school, maybe go to pharmacy school. You could become a vet or a physical therapist. You could maybe decide that you want to work as a marine biologist. You might want to work in some kind of food processing. Biologists do a lot with food. They do a lot with agriculture. If you're ever interested in agricultural sciences or farming, you need biology to understand that. So I think that it's a broad subject, but it's a great one to be interested in because I think that it's something that we're always going to need. There's never going to be, the need for biology is never going to go away. And so that's another really cool thing about biology. So stay interested in it. Definitely explore different pieces of biology. And then I got the same question twice, so I'm going to answer them. What is my relation to Indiana? I think if you mean like my geographic relation, so I live, if the country is like this, you guys are kind of in the middle, you're in the Midwest. I live all the way on the East Coast. So if you think about where the Atlantic Ocean comes in, I live all the way over there, but just like a little bit into the country. I don't live too far from New York. So if you've ever thought of like New York City, I live about an hour from New York City. But when I live in Virginia, I just go like straight down south, like 6 hours in my car, and I drive myself down to my little house. And that's where I currently, well, not currently, but when I'm in school, that's where I go to school. But I am on the East Coast. I'm a plane ride away from you guys, but I will also share this really fun fact with you. So I actually got my evening gown for Miss America from Indiana. I flew all the way to Indiana, to Granger, Indiana, which I guess is like kind of right outside where the college Notre Dame is. And I stayed there, and there was a dress shop there that I got my Miss America gown for. So I actually picked out my Miss America gown in Indiana. So thank you, everyone in Indiana, for helping me have my Miss America gown. We have another question coming in, and then I think that we might be out of time. When I was younger, was I interested in the chemical breakdowns and how chemicals and different stuff reacts? 125%. I would literally sit in my kitchen and mix stuff together and see what would happen. Like if you think of like the baking soda and vinegar volcano that everyone kind of does when they're a kid, like that was me all the time. I was like, what happens if I mix this and this? What happens if I mix this and this? And I would mix a ton of things and try to figure out how things worked. And I think that that kind of helped my exploration and understanding kind of the scientific method and the process of learning new things once I finally got into like my actual education and learning about chemicals and science. Once I got into like chemistry class in high school, I was definitely that kid. And then I have one more quick question, which is, why did I have an interest in talking to y'all today? That's a great one to end with. I love sharing my story about why I loved science, or why I do love science so much, and what made me want to pursue science, and then also why science actually was relevant in helping me win Miss America. Because a lot of you might be watching this and you would have never thought that Miss America and science would go together. I never did. And really, in the past, it has been this thing that's seemed like this really girly thing that girls do sometimes, and it seems like toddlers and tiaras. But in reality, someone like me who loves science, I consider myself a huge science nerd. I actually got to, first of all, change what people think about Miss America, but also use this really traditional platform to be able to travel the country and talk about why science is so important. And I love doing that. And so being able to share with those of you, I know a lot of you watching are a little younger than I am. And so being able to kind of share the experiences that I've had going through my educational time as a woman in science, but also just as a person in science, being a girl aside, has been really cool. And so I hope you guys kind of learn a little bit from my story and maybe have a greater perspective of a career in STEM, but also maybe have a different perception of Miss America when you walk away today. And so that's just a little bit about me. If any of you want to follow me or do any social media stuff with me, I am on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And it's my full name, @Camille Schrier. And if you have any more questions after this, you can please feel free to reach out. You can follow me. I just got a TikTok. I know a lot of you are on TikTok. I made my first TikTok this week. And I'm hoping to make some science TikToks coming up too. So if you guys want to connect with me, you totally can. So thank you guys for all of your time. And I think we're going to move on to the next thing. Thanks, guys.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for signing on, and hopefully you'll join the next session and find something else fun to learn about.